Thank you very much. Actually, I was at the Politics show the other Friday, and the BBC Parliament channel was replaying coverage of the 1974 election. There was also a fantastic moment with a reporter who was out on the street and who was going to interview a bunch of women, and his introduction line started with the immortal words, "Here are a cheery bunch of housewives." Note to self in this election, don't introduce people like that. But they also had on the programme the great David Butler, Professor David Butler from Nuffield College. And I remember the most fantastic quote he had about experts and predictions, and it is this: "The experts' predictions are right no more often than the average layperson. He's just wrong for more sophisticated reasons." And so I think it will be with us today that we were going to sit and make predictions about what might happen, and you can probably get us back here in 3 months' time and judge how badly wrong we got them all.
My first prediction in terms of the general election, which is mainly what I'm going to focus on, is that the Conservatives will win the general election and we will win it well. I think the economic disaster can be laid in very significant part at Labour's door, the size of the budget deficit going into the recession in particular, and their system of banking regulation. A number of people are saying, why have the Conservatives agreed to the debates when they're ahead? And I think actually it's a chance to showcase that choice between David Cameron and Gordon Brown. My third prediction is that the turnout will be the highest since 1992. I think the date will almost certainly be the 6th of May, which is John's birthday. I think I'm reading on his Wikipedia entry, so he will have the chance to celebrate on that day, the last day of Gordon Brown as Prime Minister of this country.
John Hutton, to whom more than one of those remarks was addressed.
What the election is going to be fundamentally about is the economy, and how we deal with the recovery, how we strengthen the recovery, how we deal with the question of the deficit, and what the future government, a future government, will do about taxes. Because we've got to keep taxes as low as possible, commensurate with the current state of the economy. The Tories have only prospered in the last few years under Mr. Cameron's leadership by moving on to the centre ground that New Labour has helped to create. If they move away from that centre ground, I think they will pay a very high electoral price. Because the question that a lot of people are asking themselves about the Conservatives is, have they changed? That's, I think, one of the intriguing issues in the campaign, and that is what's going to come out, because I think the Tory head and the Tory heart are in two totally different places. So the Tories have changed the brand. I think that's a good thing. The brand was a really pretty bad one. But I think in the process of rebranding, they've lost definition altogether. So is this a 1979 or 1997 moment? No, I don't think so. I think it's more like a 1992.
John said that no one is going to be voting about, whether Gordon Brown is a bully or not. But in the absence of divergent ideologies, and when we're really only having an argument about who is going to manage cuts the best, what will happen is that personality is an issue. I mean, we see that more and more. I understand that Cameron, half Darts, half Darcy, as I like to call him, has not sealed the deal. But nor has Brown, as this sort of now, pictured as this sort of shoving kind of juggernaut figure that just kind of goes on regardless. So I would like to sort of predict that there would be a hung parliament and that it can function, and that this may be what people are inadvertently voting for. Instead of saying, if it's not broke, let's not fix it. It is broken, and maybe by not fixing it and by having a hung parliament, then we would have a new era.
George Parker.
Thank you very much, John, and welcome to the Financial Times this morning. People are cynical about politicians generally. They're confused about the message the Conservative Party are putting out as well, because when Cameron was elected as leader in 2005, we were in different circumstances. And as a result, policies which were framed for good times have had to be skewed around for the politics of the difficult times. And I think the public, and the polling shows this, don't really understand what the Conservative Party is all about. Do we really want to wake up on May the 7th, we assume, with another 5 years of a Labour government, another 5 years of Gordon Brown's baleful, as the Conservatives would see it, presence in number 10. My prediction is that we'll have a hung parliament, and my prediction is that the Conservative Party will have by far the largest number of seats, somewhere close to an overall majority. A hung parliament where David Cameron is forced to make an agreement of some kind with the smaller parties, including the Liberal Democrats, will ensure a broader basis of support for the very difficult challenges that they would have to take. and I think would lead actually in a paradoxical way to a more stable government over the long term.
Because I'm a candidate, I'm banging on doors, and I do it all the time, virtually every day. And I can just say that from my experience, Labour is a love that dare not speak its name. I mean, you cannot find Labour supporters. They're there, but nobody admits it. And the Conservative vote is astonishingly soft. It is very, very soft. There is no enthusiasm. What about social cohesion? How do we hold the country together? Just look at what's happening in the pig countries, Portugal, Ireland, Greece, Spain. Look at the social stresses that are happening there. So for a start, the political class, us up here, are going to have to lead, and lead from the front. And I would like to hope, going back to the benefits of a hung parliament or a balanced parliament, is that actually we can get a shared vision of the step change that needs to be done.
What do you think might be the social cohesion impacts of a 30% cut in public sector expenditure over however many years it's going to be? What are the mechanisms that you think, or the steps you think we could put in place to try to maintain social cohesion?
I think the British public have a general support for doing something about the deficit and getting our own house in order. I think if it's done intelligently and responsibly over a period of time, then I think it would actually command support.
I don't think either party have thought it through enough. I think if there's public sector wage freezes in the way that people are talking about, there will be protest. I think there'll be protests from workers in the public sector, by users of the public sector. I don't believe the Tories for 1 minute have any idea of how they're going to manage this.
My real worry, John, is that we're going to go into this period after the election where we have to belt tighten. We have to. Everyone knows that. And we do what we've always done before. We just take 10% off you and 10% off you and 10% off here. And frontline services suffer. That would be the wrong thing to do, because I think the social cohesion damage will be high.
I think you can take a lot of money out of government spending in these areas and deliver the same outcomes for people at a much lower cost. The public sector hasn't been subject to the same kind of disciplines over the last 13 years of Labour government, simply because the money has just kept on pouring in that the private sector's been. And I'm a bit more optimistic than some, but I don't think it can be achieved without any damage to social cohesion.
What I'd like the panel's view on is the short-term prediction of whether the political class is sufficiently adept and fleet of foot to come to a conclusion about what the government's going to be, which I think that the financial markets might only give it literally a few days to do so.
I wanted the panel to address the television debates, please. There's a lot of hot air already being built up around these, and perhaps people are being disingenuous in saying the impact they may have on the election.
If there's no clear outcome of the election, it'll take a few days to, for everything to fall into place. But I hope the politicians really set about that, with proper seriousness, and they've got to set about it in a proper patriotic sense. I mean, if no one comes out of the election on top, then people have got to get together and they've got to sort the problem out. TV debates, are they going to be important? Who knows the answer to that question? I think they are going to be important. This would be my instinct. I think the importance of these debates will be a reflection of the fact that the country really has not come to a settled view yet about what they want to come out of the election. I think a lot of people will follow that quite closely.
The impact of the TV debates, I think, will be huge, and I think will dominate coverage throughout the weeks, those weeks of the election.
We've got to get things more local, get people feeling that they are involved. But I'm under no illusions. That's why I put it in my opening remarks. I think this is the biggest challenge that the political class faces in the next 10 years, is holding this country together.
Thank you very much. That was a really good way to start the day. The Financial Times has very nicely hosted this event. This event is brought to you in association with a small, perfectly formed business called Taylor Bennett. I would like you to thank wonderful chair Jon Sopel and the panel, Greg Hands, George Parker, Suzanne Moore, Hutton, Sandy Walkington. Have a good day.